Hey, I'm Eric, I'm the explorer.
I'm Phil, I'm the folklorist.
And together we are setting out across the Empire State to explore the haunts and legends of New York.
Buried deep under Delta Lake, near Rome, lie what was once the community of Delta. Its buildings and town site lost when a dam was built on the Mohawk River, flooding the area. Rumors persist that building foundations can be seen under the lake. Could there be any remnants of Delta we can still find today? That's what we'll be in search of when we explore the lost village of Delta.
Well, Phil, here we are on the shores of Lake Delta, just north of Rome, a beautiful spot known today for its state park and recreational facilities. And I bet you know a little bit of the history about Delta and what used to be here.
Oh, you're talking about the ghost town that's under the water, right?
The lost village of Delta, right?
Yeah.
There's an urban legend. Are there buildings from the abandoned village that still exist today? Have you heard that?
Yep. And there's all kinds of rumors about the entire community is underwater, and that's why they don't like anybody like swimming or boating near here, because they might get tangled up in former structures.
We've found somebody who's going to give us the real story about the lost village of Delta. And what if I told you there are buildings that were once in Delta that we can still find today?
Really?
Let's go have a look. And we are here with Mary Centro, who I think we all consider to be the area's preeminent scholar, historian on the lost village of Delta. And Mary, you've shared with us some really, really interesting things. So I guess let's start kind of at the beginning. Why Delta? Why did the Mohawk River need to be dammed, and why did they choose this location?
The state chose the location for the dam, the Mohawk River, at the Palisades north of Rome, because they felt it would be the perfect place to build this impounding dam, because eons ago there had been an earthen dam that had flooded the whole area. An earthen dam, probably not exactly where Delta Dam is today, but probably farther down, and so they thought, oh, this is the perfect place. It's not going to cost as much money to dam here than as in other locations.
And now certainly nobody's going to lose their town site without a fight. What was that process like?
In that era, people believed in eminent domain, and they believed in that the government knew what was best for you. And in all my research over the last 25 years or more, I have not found where they formed committees and they got together and they got their lawyers and like they would do today, that people went along with it because they felt, oh, the government knows what's best. You know, and there was a bond issue that was floated in 1903 to do the project of improving the Erie Canal system, and I don't see where there was any opposition to that. And probably some of the people who lived in Delta even voted for this bond issue, but they felt, oh, well, you know, everything goes downstate to New York City. It's never going to happen to us. You know, who cares? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What can you tell me about the village? I mean, describe what this village was at the time.
At the time, it was a nice, quiet country village. It had a church that everybody participated in. It seemed like it was the place, or the most popular place for people to go. And there was a school, and there was, of course, the canning factory that gave employment. But it was a nice little quiet country village. The houses were nice. They seemed to be well kept, except for a few. And there was the hotel. The stage came through the village twice a day.
And factories.
And well, there was the canning factory that employed not only people from Delta, but people from Westernville and Lee Center and other areas. In the summertime, it was a very, very popular place. In the wintertime, they employed people to make the cans for next year's packing season. And those cans were made out of Welsh tin. And they try to keep people working. And there was 2 general stores. If not, at one point in time, there was 3 or 4 general stores. And so, it was just a nice, quiet place. And if the dam hadn't been built, Delta might still be there today. It's just a nice little quiet village setting off over to the side, like there's other nice quiet villages in this area.
But in fact, it was.
Yep.
The town site was flooded. Now, everything was moved, or wasn't it? Let's put this urban legend to rest.
Okay. Yep.
Are there buildings underneath Lake Delta?
No.
No.
There are foundations, but there are no actual physical buildings. One of the responsibilities of the contractor, Mr. McMullen out of New York City, was the clearing of the site, which meant getting rid of all the buildings, either tearing them down, and a lot of them were sold and then they were moved, cutting down all the trees, and clearing of all the brush. And that was one of his responsibilities. So they came through, and some people, like the men who bought the town hall here in Western, they bought the building, they had it dismantled, and they moved it here and they rebuilt it. There's houses, people tell me that there's different houses in Rome, there's some in Whitesboro, there's some on Stokes Hill that were moved from the village of Delta.
Why do you think that legend persists, that you drive by, or parents tell their kids, if the light's just right, or if the water level's too low, why do you think that persists?
There was one building, and it was the Dennison home, and it was a brick building. And apparently they didn't have a lot of time to tear it down, even though the Dennison property was the very first property the state took. In one of the pictures I have, and it was taken around 1925 when they let the water of the lake down and they almost drained the lake. And there is still part of that building there. And they managed to move all the bricks and to get it out of the area. And I'm not real sure. When I was growing up, they told me not to swim in Delta because the buildings were there and the cellars were there, and they'd suck you down and you drowned and all this stuff. But there are no buildings. As I told the last individual who inquired to me to think about what they were asking about, was the church still there? Well, it's been 100 years, and even if it had been left, there wouldn't be anything left. It would have been all dry rotted and washed away. A lot of cellars, and they're all filling in with mud and stuff now too. So there's not a lot to see. My husband, who scuba dived there many years ago, said there wasn't anything to see.
So you raise a really interesting point, Mary, that I guess I never knew. So there are structures, buildings, places that were rescued from Delta that we can physically touch, feel, stand in today.
Right, stand in today. All right, here's the town hall, which was the Empire Hotel. The church was dismantled and moved to Blossvale. It's at the end of Main Street in Blossvale. It's not as large as the church in Delta, but when you look at it, and if you had a picture of the church in Delta with you, you can see the similarities in the windows and the doors. There is a house up on Stokes Hill, they tell me, that came from Delta. There was one on the Glenmore Road in Taberg, which was Dr. Pillmore's home, and it burned last year. There's other houses, I've been told about them in Whitesboro.
Now, one of the things that always seems to come up when they have these flooded towns from back in the day, what about the cemetery?
All right, the cemeteries were moved. There was one man who said he'd never fish out there because he was so afraid the bodies were going to pop up. But they didn't move them. They moved the Red Cemetery. They moved 3 other smaller cemeteries, and they moved them into the town of Western on a farm that was owned by Mr. Daniels, and it's probably got one of the best views of Lake Delta you ever want to see. And they reinterred them there. The state says they moved 600 bodies. If you walk around in this cemetery, you'll be hard-pressed to find 600 tombstones. And even the list that the state of New York provided to me, there's not 600 names. Yeah, but they did move them. Yes, they're not there anymore.
So let's talk a little bit about the building where we are in today, which is the Western Town Hall, I guess now rechristened as Liberty Hall?
Well, when they moved it here in 1912, the gentleman, the men who, they sold shares actually. And I think they paid $2,500 for this building. And they had it moved here by horse and wagon and rebuilt. And they christened it Liberty Hall. And this was the place where they had square dances, and they held harvest dinners, and you could have your baby shower here, your bridal reception here. And then around 1960, when the last gentleman of this group of men was the last one surviving, and he was very elderly, the town of Western bought this building, and they had it made into the town hall. And it was well, of course, we still call it Liberty Hall, but it is the official town hall of the town of Western.
So this would have been the front doors into the old Empire Hotel. And you could probably see what were cloakrooms or other rooms before you headed into the main hall or the dining area. What a beautiful old building, and fascinating and fantastic that this is still here, a connection to Delta that we can still be inside today. So Mary, we're here in Westernville, and here would be Route 46 coming along. So Delta was actually, I wasn't sure where the town site was. You're saying it's kind of over here off of
Elmer Hill.
Elmer Hill Road.
And if you're familiar with the Lake Delta Yacht Club, it lays out in front of the Lake Delta Yacht Club.
So that is where the town site of Delta was. And you were saying Short Hill Road, Long Hill Road came together.
They came together, and they made, they came in from the south, and they made Main Street in Delta. And they ran up to, well, a lot of people are familiar with Stokes Cove. It ran up to Stokes Cove, and that's when you could go to your right, and it would take you along the old River Road to Westernville. Or you could go to your left at Stokes Cove, and it would take you out to what is now Stokes Westernville Road.
And taking a walk just through the building, you know, you hear the old floors creaking. And anything interesting in this building? Any interesting stories to share?
Well, one night I was over here, and so I was setting up for a program upstairs in one night, and it was probably about 11:30 at night, and I was really tired. And I shut off the lights, and I sat down just to rest for a minute, and all of a sudden I could hear people talking, and I could hear people laughing.
Really?
And I said, that's what I said, really? And so I looked out around here, you know, and I looked in the parking lot and things, and of course, you know, they roll up the streets here about 9 o'clock at night, and I looked and I couldn't see anybody, and so I just sat there, and I could hear people talking. And I joke about, you know, the stage must come through about 10 o'clock at night, and people get off and they go upstairs, going to do whatever they're going to do. And then they leave. And the judge, our judge, Cora Donahue, I told her about it, and she told me that I spent too much time here, that I'm crazy. But when she was here one night waiting for the state police to show up, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and she said she heard people walking around upstairs, and she heard people laughing and talking. And once in a while, you know, you hear them. They don't hurt us, you know.
Phil? Now, do you think it's from Delta days, or do you think maybe this is associated with a little more recent?
It might be associated with both, you know, because this was the meeting place once it became, you know, Liberty Hall. My husband used to talk about the square dances upstairs, you know, but it could be both. Yeah.
Well, Phil, from a folklorist and a paranormal investigative standpoint, just out of curiosity, if there were spirits here that moved from Delta, what does that mean, spirits moving from, this building was relocated.
Well, they're not always associated with the land so much as they can be associated with artifacts, they can be associated with just the wood, the building, the architecture itself. They can be associated with people, and that kind of carries over regardless. And based on what you're saying, it kind of sounds like a residual imprint, which is sort of an echo of the past. It's not actually interacting with you, but it's there. It just replays.
Yeah. And I tell them when I'm leaving some nights, I'll say, okay guys, I'm going home. Take care of the hall.
Well, I'm fascinated by what we learned and the actual real history of Delta that we're able to touch and feel.
Well, we also found out that the reason why so many people think that there's buildings under the water is when the water level went down a bit, the former brick house, part of Delta, was there because it had not been torn down in time. But when the water level went down, they did tear it down.
And Mary told us that there were parts of the old lock system that are still under, and stone isn't going to go away the same way that wood rots away.
Yeah, no, that's going to be centuries.
fascinating look at the lost village of Delta. Hey, if you like the haunts and legends of New York, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and we'll take you on more adventures across New York State looking at the haunts and legends.
Let us know in the comments below where else we should go.